Bobby Wagner. What else? This is RamView.
It's hot out there, but let's blow them off the line of scrimmage. Hang on, okay.
I'm Joe Terosian, and this is RamView, the February 24th, 2023 edition, and not the 2023 edition, but the date of 2023. It is good to be here. We're doing live from the Ram Cave on a early Friday morning. I'm on my way to camp. I'm going to work at campground this weekend for youth camp up in Creston, California. You could look that up on maps. But I was hoping to do a broadcast from there, but I'm not sure what the weather's going to be in terms of will I be able to broadcast? And then that whole debate went out the window when the Rams released Bobby Wagner. And this will be an abbreviated RamView that is brought to you by the Kistler Law Firm. Injured in an auto accident, need help, got questions? Call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. That's Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. And check out Kistler Law Firm, that's one word, KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since 92. And by Temple City Auto Repair. Having some auto issues, get yourself some John and Henry at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. Well, the Rams did it, right? They made their first move in terms of battling the constant salary cap issue, and there's no reason of talking about anything else. The Rams released Bobby Wagner. There's a practical, there's an emotional, and there's just the way the world is, things to talk about here. The practical restructures and things like this are bound to happen. They happen in the NFL. But the Rams did save 5 rocks. That means they saved $5 million against about $14 million in salary cap deficit. So it takes them back down to about 9. You know, you release Tyler Higbee, you get another 4, right? Maybe you get rid of Jordan Fuller, you get rid of another 2, almost 3, and you renegotiate a couple of these guys, which I'm sure they're already in discussions or restructures. I keep saying renegotiation. It'll be taken care of, right? And the thing is, the less restructuring you do, which I'm thinking played into part with Wagner, is the less money you're kicking down the road to affect future salary caps. So the practical is Bobby Wagner is gone, and Ernest Jones, who has developed his first 2 years in the NFL, who's played well, who can cover. He is it's his job now, and it's going to be him and whoever the Rams bring in alongside of him. Bobby Wagner was fantastic. Forget about the emotional. He's one of the top-rated off-ball linebackers that you ever saw in history, and he had a great year last year, and he showed he still had legs. In fact, someone made a comment which was, look at his legs. I'd use him as an edge rusher. It's exactly what I said last July and August. And the same people in the Ram community cut into me for saying the Rams should use Bobby Wagner as a pass rusher. His legs are still there. It's obvious his legs are still there. Did you see him hop over that scrimmage line to block that field goal, or it was an extra point earlier this past season? I mean, he can still play. The problem is his position is basically being canceled out by these new generation offenses. Now, everything is cyclical, but for right now, that off-ball linebacker, that is not a high priority position. And that's where we're going to lead to the emotional a little bit here in a second. But this is why I made the mention on several of the sites yesterday. It really comes down to who is more valuable, who is harder to replace, Jalen Ramsey or Bobby Wagner? Well, Ernest Jones is going to step in and play where Bobby Wagner played. The Rams went to the Super Bowl without Bobby Wagner, with Troy Reeder and Ernest Jones. The Rams, for the most part, played all of 2021 with Kenny Young, right? Ernest Jones, Troy Reeder, all these different guys. Remember Micah Kaiser was playing some linebacker for the Rams when they were highly successful. These guys come and go. Granted, Bobby Wagner is the best, but you can replace him. You can't replace a Jalen Ramsey. And right now, the Rams can't afford or don't have anybody lined up to replace a Leonard Floyd, right? Is Bobby Wagner a better player than Leonard Floyd? Yeah, but Leonard Floyd plays a more valuable position, which is edge rusher. And the emotional is, I understand after watching Bobby Wagner play for one season with the Rams, one season, I know why Seattle was in mourning and why teammates and fans love that guy, right? When this season went south, when this Rams season went south, Bobby Wagner just kept playing, right? The dude just kept hitting. The dude kept running, kept taking himself out there, kind of like Jalen Ramsey did too. And I hate to see the Rams let him go. I want him to stay. I really do. I'm not anti-Bobby Wagner. I think the Rams misused Bobby Wagner. I don't like the Rams scheme, right? The NFL changes. Off-ball middle linebackers aren't valuable anymore. And you know what? Soft two-shell coverages get figured out. And the NFL figured it out. And Andy Dalton and Colt McCoy are kicking your butt. You better do something different. And you got a guy like Bobby Wagner. And I think he ended up with 6 sacks this year. And I remember I said, like a few people are saying now, this guy, he still has legs. Use him in the pass rush, right? Move him around. But the Rams defense is so intransigent, right? It is so jejune. That means it's just so passe that they're not creative. They weren't creative with Bobby Wagner. And thus, the kind of scheme they're going to play, Raheem is back. Bobby Wagner is expendable, right? And we're going to lose his wisdom and we're going to lose his experience. And that's the bummer. But the Rams are still playing, which is no problem. They're still playing a defense that is built to defend against the modern offenses. But even within how you're building that defense, you have to have adjustments and you have to have change because the league's figured you out, right? And the way the world is, you know, off-ball linebackers in these configurations, they just aren't as valuable. Shutdown corner and edge rusher, a 350-pound run stuffer are far more valuable than an off-ball linebacker. Growing up, Bobby Wagner would have been called a classic middle linebacker, right? And there was a time, you know, when I came to start watching NFL games, there was a time when you knew each team's middle linebacker like you did their quarterback, right? I can go down a list here. You know, Jack Reynolds, right? Jack Reynolds. It was John Hadle and every other Ram quarterback after that. Tommy Nobis with the Falcons. You know, who was the opposite? Bob Berry, Bob Lee, Steve Bartkowski. Mike Lucci with Detroit was Greg Landry, Bill Munson. Jim Carter with the Green Bay Packers. He's the one that replaced Nitschke. He's playing with Scott Hunter and Jim Delgado and Jerry Taggy. You knew who these guys were. Jeff Seaman was the middle linebacker for the Vikings, and Fran Tarkenton was quarterback. Dick Butkus, of course, with the Bears. You had Bobby Douglas and Bob Avellini and all those guys, although I don't think he played with Avellini. Harold McClinton was in Washington for George Allen, Billy Kilmer, Sonny Jurgensen, Leroy Jordan in Dallas with Staubach and Craig Morton. Bill Berge was in Cincy and Philly. Cincy with Ken Anderson, Philly with Roman Gabriel, right? Mike Curtis was in Baltimore with John Unitas and Burt Jones. Nick Bonicani was part of the leader of the no-name defense with the Dolphins and Bob Greasy and Earl Morrill. Jim Chiansky was the middle linebacker for the Buffalo Bills, and Dennis Shaw and Joe Ferguson were his quarterbacks. Bob Babich was in Cleveland and San Diego. Jack Lambert came to Pittsburgh. Jim LeClaire replaced Berge and Cincy. We knew who these guys were. The middle linebacker was crucial. Willie Lanier in Kansas City. Dan Connor, Monty Johnson were the middle linebackers in succession for the Oakland Raiders. I mean, you knew who these guys were, but this is a passing league now. 11 personnel is pretty much base personnel now, right? 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and a running back. And there's variations, we know, but this requires the defense to play 5 DBs all the time. And you don't even call them outside linebackers anymore. You call them edge rushers, right? And your defensive ends are more just like interior linemen these days. Do you really think of Ashawn Robinson as a defensive end? Do you really think of Bob Aaron Donald as a defensive end? No, he's an interior defensive lineman in a 34 scheme that plays a soft shell 2-deep zone. That's what he does, right? And the outside guys are your edge guys. Leonard Floyd, right? Then last year we had Leonard Floyd and Von Miller. These guys, their job is to get to the quarterback because the quarterback's dropping back to pass. That's their one job, and that's a highly paid job. Now, Bobby Wagner is a great player, but not like a cornerback or an edge. And you can't find a immediate placement for him, for Jalen Ramsey, but you can find one in the third round, 104th overall, and that was Ernest Jones. The Rams found one in Ernest Jones they're comfortable going with. And I also imagine if anyone else was willing to pay for Bobby Wagner, if his skill set was in major demand because he plays that off-ball linebacker, since the Rams and Wagner mutually agreed to part, that's what it says, mutually agreed, don't you think they would have made a deal that someone would have come around and said, hey, I'll give you a third rounder for one of the best off-ball linebackers in the history of the game who could still play? Wouldn't somebody have come in and said, I'll give you a fourth rounder for one of the best off-ball linebackers in the history of the game who can still play? I'll give you a fifth rounder for one of the best off-ball linebackers in the history of the game and who can still play. But no one did. And I think if there was somebody, they would have explored that option. And if they had found someone willing to do it, they would have taken that, right? Get rid of the contract and then get the draft pick. But no matter how great Bobby Wagner is, he just wasn't in demand. And unfortunately, you can make those moves. Now, he'll sign as a free agent. I don't think he's going to get the money he would get from the Rams. I think somebody's obviously going to sign him. You know, my hope would be that nobody signs him and he comes back to the Rams. But somebody's going to sign him because he's that kind of a player. He's good for your locker room, brings it every night, every Sunday. So you got to love him. But he's just a position that right now is obsolete in the NFL. That middle off-ball linebacker is just not something that is hard to replace these days. And so you're not going to spend the big bucks. And so the Rams looked at it and said, $5 million. That's huge, right? Now, when you look at the Rams salary cap issues, and someone else had a comment on this, and I fully agree. You look at the other players who were in the spectrum to be restructured, and they probably still will. This could have been done. You could have kept Bobby Wagner. But I'm guessing there's still going to be restructures. And on top of Wagner's salary, and I honestly, as I've shared, and I took heat for it, you got to put Tyler Higbee in the street. He's 30. He's got mileage, and he's close to a $4 million hit against the cap. Put him in the street, save more money, draft a tight end. Draft a tight end, and a tight end that's full of deep with tight ends. And so I got to imagine maybe there's a free agent out there the Rams are looking at. Maybe they're looking at an offensive lineman to sign. Maybe. There is the question, while I don't think I would move off Joe Noteboom after signing him, I think the Rams believed in him. But he didn't just tweak a knee, turn a knee, or get the standard, which is now ACL. No, he did Achilles. And big guy like that rupturing an Achilles. And if the Rams don't think he's healthy, then they're going to make a move. And, getting structures from Cooper Kupp and some others, putting guys like Bobby Wagner and Tyler Higbee in the street will allow the Rams even more cap space to make a move. The estimation for the Rams to sign their draft class, sign all 10 players in their draft class this year, will cost them about $8 million. So they're going to need that before they spend it anyplace else. And so they do have some moves to make. But again, they can do it in the restructure. But I think they might be thinking above and beyond just some basic tweaks here and there. Maybe there's a major move in the offing, and Bobby Wagner was expendable. And I know that's an awful thing to say. You're not going to get me to say anything bad about Bobby Wags. I love the guy. But he didn't move the needle, right? He didn't change things. We were still 5-12. Now, I know those were injuries, but even Bobby Wagner can't overcome a defense which is schematically, it's just off. It's just schematically, that Rams defense is just, I don't like it. I'm not thrilled with Raheem Morris coming back. I really wish they had made a more of their proactive move, or if they're going to keep Raheem Morris, I really wish they would talk about a discussion about changing what they're doing, right? I mean, we picked it out. We were talking about it all last year. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, the Turf Show Times or somebody comes out and they identify that the Eagles play a defense similar to the Rams. And then you get this suddenly so much this breaking news that the Chiefs have figured out, the way the Rams play defense because the Eagles play something similar. Hello, Andy Dalton figured it out. Colt McCoy figured it out. And so I would like to see the Rams be a little more aggressive in changing what their scheme is. And unfortunately, before we get there, it cost us Bobby Wagner. And because I think I would have found a way to utilize him in some other ways than the Rams were. Guy that hits, still has his legs, coverage backer. I think you could have found a better way to use him, and I don't think the Rams did. But now he's gone, and I certainly don't want that money spent on Robert Woods, right? If you're going to spend that extra money, if they're looking to go over and above, besides the restructures and $5 million for Bobby Wagner and maybe Tyler Higbee getting put in the street, and the Rams really create some real cap space for them to work in to grab somebody along the offensive line that they like. Maybe they have doubts about Noboom's recovery. Then I'd much rather see them do that. I'd much rather see them. They are in desperate need of an edge. They are in desperate need of these things, right? And then we talk about running back and tight end. These are things they're in need of, as well as, if you think you can get something on the interior line, great. But are you? I like the guys they have. Anyway, that was the deal here. The Rams were looking probably to create some more cap space to go above and beyond because they got other plans going forward. All right. Hey, this is the RamView show, RamView FanView. I am at the 17-minute mark, and I'm Joe Terosian, and I do RamView. I also pastor a small church in Burbank called Burbank Faith and Burbank Faith Virtual. You can find them right here on YouTube. Type in Burbank Faith Virtual. And I was a sports writer for 21 years. And I write books now, as well as do RamView to supplement my income as a pastor. I've written 2 high school football novels. You can follow me here, hit like, subscribe, hit the alert button. When we post a new one, we go Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And you can check out my books on Amazon and at joeterosian.com. And if you could hit like, if you could hit share, if you could help spread this around, I'm willing to take the heat. I know I got people really mad at me yesterday because they are very much Bobby Wagner fans. I do not think this is a sign that Les Snead is incompetent. I'm sorry. I think the Rams lost Von Miller. They made a move on Bobby Wagner that was, the economics of it were good. The contract was not going to be something that was going to hurt if they had to get out of it. And they saved $5 million by getting out of it. So they took their swing and people got hurt, and last year just didn't pan out. And now it's time to go a different direction. Les Snead's not an idiot. Sean McVay's not an idiot. The defense is played that. I'm not calling anybody an idiot there, but if the Rams go in trying to play the same defense going forward, and we see the same results, then you can make your own assumptions. Okay, Joe Terosian, thanks for clicking on. We will see you on Monday and be back on track talking other stuff and going forward. God bless. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.